Hi, my name's Tim. Join me in this video as I go over 10 things that you can do right now to make yourself a better RC model airplane pilot. Let's get to it. The first thing you could do to improve your RC flying is to have a junker airplane, just an airplane that is kind of beat up. You can repair it fairly easily and you can just fly it without having too many worries. The plane should have low mass, high survivability, and be agile so that you can practice maneuvers. The idea of a beater airplane is that you can push the envelope a little bit, get out of your comfort zone, fly it a little bit lower, upside down a little bit lower, more aggressive maneuvers, and not worry too much about hurting perhaps one of your best airplanes. A very good example of this is my model of the Bronco. This is a foam board design. You saw it flying in the beginning of the video. A link to the plans that you can build it is in the description. You can build this model in a day. You don't have to paint it. It's a very agile, fun to fly airplane. I think it would make an ideal candidate for one of these beater airplanes, just to go out and have fun without worrying all the time about a crash that would damage a very valuable plane that took a long time to build. The second thing that is of value to help you is to find the right airplane to fly. We all have different likes of what we like to fly for airplanes, characteristics, maneuverability. For example, with myself, I've never been a fan of delta wing aircraft. I have a hard time with the orientation of them up in the sky. Other people love them and just fly them all the time. You can do research from what you see at the field, at various aircraft meets, and through YouTube you can see any range of aircraft flying, especially with the almost ready to fly models. You can get good videos and a pretty good idea of how those things fly. So search out, find an airplane that you're comfortable with, that you're happy with. If you see something in the field that's flying especially well, get with the owner of that plane, match their batteries, controls, setups, everything just to match the way that airplane flies. You go out there comfortable with the right airplane and it will make your learning a lot better. The third thing that is helpful is to learn a little bit of basic aerodynamics for RC model airplanes. I'm in the process of doing a video on that. I will add it to the description when done. But things like wing loading, wingspan, wing chord, center of gravity, how all that can affect your model. For example, altering the center of gravity can make your model more or less stable within limits. Also, when you either design an airplane or modify existing designs, it's a good idea to know about things, for example, the center of gravity. A very good example that I've used in several of my models is you try always to keep the weight of the airplane as low as possible. If the plane comes out tail heavy, you usually have to add weight to the nose to make it come within balance. With things like the Bronco, when I originally did this, it was a little bit tail heavy. What I did was I simply extended the nose a little bit further. It was very easy to do. So the weight of the motor was further forward and it balanced out the tail moment without the need to add weight into the nose section. Similarly, with my Guilos conversions, you can see several of these in the description. I'm faced with the decision, do we have rudder for turns or use ailerons? For the smaller models like the Aranca, rudders is the way to go. But for larger models like the Guilos Hellcat, you really have to go with ailerons. And understanding of aerodynamics will help you make these decisions, make you a better pilot, both in the building and in the flying stage at the field. The fourth one is a little bit humorous, and that's fly to crash. In other words, we should, in line with the previous one of having a beater aircraft, we should be able, with certain models, to fly them to the limits and not be worried about crashing. Back in the old days of RC flight, back in the 1990s, before even CA glues were available, modelers only had one or two airplanes. If you crashed one of those airplanes, you could be out for a couple of weeks of flying. ARFs didn't exist. It was hard to get things repaired and back into the air. These days with ARFs, maybe you get something at a swap meet and you can fly it much more aggressively. When you're just not worried about crashing, you'll find that you're more relaxed and you can learn the outer bounds of your experience and become a more confident pilot for those extremes of flight. The fifth one, and this applies to flying whether it's full scale or models, is try to have fun. When you are tense or nervous, it is very hard for any productive learning to be going on. You're just not going to be adapting, taking in lessons as you can if you're relaxed. It could be on a windy day, it could be bad weather, there could be other stresses going on. It could be something as simple as too many models in the air at the same time. Work to have fun when you're flying. If you find you're not having fun, your head's just not in the game, you're not paying attention to what's going on, that's when accidents can happen, unforeseen events. Do what you can to have fun. It could be having a spare model that you're just very comfortable with to get you back settled down. But when you're not, when you're tense, when you're not having fun, it does not help your learning with RC model airplanes. The next thing you should consider, is really almost a must-do for modelers, is embrace and use a computer RC flight simulator. There are several RC flight simulators out there. I have been using RealFlight for a number of years. The simulators are good. They work really well. They do a good job replicating the flight characteristics of the aircraft, and you can practice it at home, bad weather, if you've been away from the field for a while. And the beauty of the sims is you can fly a wide range of models, aerobatic, scale, World War I models, to learn about the different characteristics, how they handle, and just make yourself a better pilot, again, without any worries about crashing. You can have fun. They're a great adjunct help to you with your RC flying at the airfield. So now let's take a look at a few RealFlight videos that I use, and I'll provide commentary. So this is the RealFlight flight simulator. You have an interleaved controller. It's just a transmitter, but they don't call it that because there's no transmitting. It just plugs into the computer. There are a range of aircraft in RealFlight. This is the E-flite Timber. Very often, almost ready-to-fly aircraft that you want to buy, they have their models in the RealFlight sim, and you get a feel for how to fly them. So this is just a normal left-hand pattern. I would say on this model the controls are a little bit sluggish than the real one, but it still makes for a good flying model, flaps, and you can practice some stall techniques. When you pull power, it comes down pretty quick, and this is a landing right here. We can also practice a reverse pattern, in this case a right-hand pattern, very easy to take off, and we do our turn out to the right and go ahead and practice landing. You'd be surprised how different it is when you're doing a right-hand pattern, but it'll make you a better pilot, and there could be days in the field where you have to fly a right-hand traffic pattern. This is a Spacewalker, a sport flyer from Sig. Again, good flying kit. I would say that this model floats a little bit more than the real airplane, but it's a good handling model, and floaters, it's good to practice that. Coming in a little bit high, what are you going to do? Fly a little bit shallower approach on the next time. Aerobatic aircraft are included to include some smoke, which is kind of nice. Again, they handle like aerobatic aircraft. Plenty of power, take off, easy to do a roll at takeoff, and you can practice the landings with a more maneuverable aircraft. Again, to show you the range, they have World War I aircraft. These are good because it's a very high drag aircraft. You need to coordinate ailerons and elevator, and when you pull power, there's a lot of drag. It comes down fairly quick. Also, if you land too fast, just like the real ones, you can nose over. Again, the fidelity of the sim. Here's another practice with the Sopwith camel, just a more normal pattern, and we'll come up with a normal landing. In addition, with the sims, they're very useful if you step up to more complex aircraft. Things like gear and flaps will affect the flying of the aircraft. Also, you'll have switches that you'll have to use in your transmitter. Good time to practice where those switches are if you have to glance down to properly fly that airplane. Another consideration to be an RC pilot is to buy more batteries. This may seem like a pretty simple thing to do, but very often we may have just the minimum number of batteries we want to fly at the field. There could be a bad battery, you could have problems recharging it. If If you bring extra batteries to the field and they're fully charged, you're probably going to fly more because all you have to do is plug in that battery and go for a flight. So something as simple as more batteries, more flight time, you'll be a better pilot. Landings, land, land, land again. I have a video in the description on touch and goes. Every RC flight has a takeoff and a landing, and sometimes we just kind of come into land without thinking about it too much. It might be long, it might be short. It's a wonderful thing for any pilot, full-scale RC model, to practice landings. It could be touch and goes, it could be approaches. You could practice a few downwind landings to see how that goes. Flying left-hand patterns and right-hand patterns. You find when you focus an entire flight on touch-and-go landings, you really come in on control of airspeed, your approach angle, how you line up with the runway. Try to gauge mark on the ground, a touchdown point, to meet that every time. By practicing, focusing on landings, it will absolutely make you a better RC pilot. Another thing on flying that used to be standard practice has really fallen out with the reliability of electric motors is to practice a dead stick landing. By dead stick, that's slang for you're flying along and your engine just suddenly, unexpectedly quits. So with internal combustion engines, the gas engines, this happened a lot. You'd just be flying along, for whatever reason, your engine quit, and now you're flying a glider essentially. With the gas engines, the battery in the plane would still power all the electronics. It is worth practicing in the simulator, at the field, just someplace during your flight, pull the throttle to idle, and just see if you can make it back to the field for a safe landing on the field. You can pull throttle on takeoff, where you might just land straight ahead to preserve the model. Could be downwind, where you can only do a 90-degree turn. You may have to land downwind, but just by practicing dead stick landings, and even having a friend just shout dead stick wherever you are, pull the throttle to idle, and just practice to see if you can make it back to the airfield. Again, you'll be thinking a little bit out of the box, things you don't normally consider, should make you a better RC pilot. The other thing to consider is to set goals for your RC flight. It's very easy to go out to the field and just do the same thing over and over. There's an old adage of a full-scale pilot having 1,000 hours, but it's the same hour 1,000 times. Just like with full scale, you want to go to different airports, different types of weather, different scenarios for your flight. For your RC model flying, challenge yourself with goals that you should set at each flight. Perhaps one goal should be to learn how to fly inverted. Inverted is certainly aerobatic flight. It's not that hard once you think your way through it. Practice a little bit on the RC flight simulator. Get up with plenty of altitude, start your inverted flight, learn how to turn, perhaps do a complete circuit of the field upside down, then progress to loops, Immelmans, rolls, split S's. But set a goal for each flight, try to learn something, do something a little bit more advanced. You'll become a better RC pilot, and I think you'll have more fun during that time at the field. Thanks for looking at this video. RC flying is a lot of fun. There's always things we can do to make it more fun. With this video, I went over 10 things that you should consider to challenge yourself, learn new skills, and all that will flow into you being a better, more confident RC pilot and having fun. Good luck.